Hi guys, I'm Irene. You're watching Perpetually Paperback, and I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up today. I read 6 books in the month of April. Is that right? Hold on. Yes, I read 6 books in the month of April. And honestly, I would actually say it was a fairly decent month. I had one that was kind of a dud, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But for the most part, I actually had a really decent reading month. And I was a little bit all over the place for the most part. So the first book I read, and I'm just going to go in chronological order, is The Deeds of the Disturber. This is the 5th one. Yes, because I'm on the 6th now. So this is the 5th one in the Amelia Peabody series by Elizabeth Peters. I've been reading this for several months now. It's a cozy mystery series based around these Egyptologists, Amelia and her husband Emerson. And it basically is like once you meet her in the first one and like you continue to follow her throughout her life, basically. So this is actually the first one that's set in the UK versus all of the others that have been set in Egypt. So this one actually has to do with, so they're in the UK because Emerson has to work on his book, and so it revolves around a mummy that has a mystery attached to it and a little bit of superstition in the British Museum. Along the way, they have some friends that we've visited or that have visited them before. So we have, and I don't remember his name, I want to say like Seth, but that's not right, is this Irish reporter. He was there in the last one. And Amelia kind of took a liking to him. He's like super charming, I think. So he's really cute. And he's just kind of like, he like looks up to them and takes care of them so much. And they've like totally grown fond of him in this really charming way. So he shows up. There's another journalist who ends up being this really cool character in it, and she totally falls in love with Emerson. It's super cute. And Amelia's just like, this shit happens all the time. It's super cute. I'm at the point where like, I feel like I'm invested in their lives, so I kind of want to know the outcome, even though I think I'm like sort of kind of starting to peter off. Like there's nothing wrong with them. I think I'm just wanting something new. I don't know. We'll see how far I get. I'm like now invested in Ramsey's life, so this is where we are. I thought that one was like 3.5, 4 stars. No, 3.5 stars is what I'd give it. So the second book I read this month was Ransom. It's the second one in the Highland Lairds series by Julie Garwood. I cannot thank my friend Connie enough for showing me this book series. She works at the secondhand bookseller in town, and she recommended the first book in the series, which I believe is The Secret. And to be honest, I actually really, really enjoyed that one. This one blew that one out of the water. I loved this one. Okay, so basically this one it's a historical romance series, and it follows Lady Gillian, who in the prologue is a very little girl, and when she's very little, she and her sister are basically taken by her father's guards because they're sieging the castle. And the dad gives a box to Kristen, the older sister, and she's got to take care of that. Well, Gillian's really the only one that ends up remembering this, and because basically the whole escape went bad and she was sort of held captive, some bad things happened, but she ends up going to live with her Uncle Morgan and sort of becomes this like person that is being blackmailed by the person that sieged her father's castle, Baron Alford, I believe. And he's kind of in the favor of King John, so there's not really much she feels she can do about her situation. Well, at this point, she's like in her early 20s, like way older. She is summoned by this Baron. He basically tells her that she needs to find her sister and procure the box, or he is going to kill her Uncle Morgan, who she loves dearly and has basically become her father. She cannot let that happen. While she's at the castle, she basically takes over this little boy who was also abducted from one of the Highland Lairds, but it actually turns out that they got the wrong kid, so when it was like a horrible mix-up, they ended up getting the wrong kid. Either way, Jillian's like, it's cool, you're mine, I will take care of you, we'll get you to your parents, okay? She's going up there anyway. So she takes this boy, I want to say his name is Michael. She becomes very attached to him. Well, it tells her that he needs to go to his uncle because his uncle is the closest person to them and he's going to help him get back to his father. His uncle happens to be Broderick, who was one of Laird Ian's men in The Secret. So it's him, and he is an outstanding protagonist. He's just so wonderful. I really liked him. He was like totally like broody and standoffish, but he like gets into it with Jillian in really awesome ways. Like they just like have such a, the banter is wonderful. Loved their relationship at the beginning. And they kind of are like fighting each other, but like they both want the same thing. It's great. So as they start to kind of like develop a relationship, they end up getting back to Ian, which Ian is the protagonist of the first book, The Secret. So we're at his place. And basically she asks Broddick to help her find her sister and find the box. In doing so, they realize that all of those, Kristen is actually at Ramsey's clan's place. So Ramsey is the best friend of Broddick and Ian. And most of this we actually know from the first one. All right, here's where it gets good. The three of them together are literally pure gold. Their banter was everything. At this point, the book basically became, we're just gonna make fun of Broddick because he's so uncomfortable and we think it's great. And they do it out in the open with everyone listening, and it is like the most amazing thing ever. Like it was so good. It was so fun to read. It was so amazing. It just aces. Anyway, moving on. So at this point, they basically start to kind of develop a plan. They end up going to Ramsey's. In this moment, Jillian where Broddick basically makes Jillian be like, I want you to come with me. Their relationship I really, really enjoyed. On the way to Ramsey's, she gets kind of tricked into marrying him. So this is a trope, it's whatever the tricked into marriage trope is. Anyway, so that's this. And it was really cute. So when they get to Ramsey's, they also acquire another friend, Bridget. She is in the care of Ramsey through some like really unfortunate circumstances, but it works out well in Julian's favor because she now has a friend. They get in trouble together and they're ambushed by this like other clan that wanted to form, or that like created a coup basically against Ramsey. And this one of them that was like anyway, they get saved. Jillian is kind of also very accident prone. Like she's always being injured or being beaten up in the book. That was like, it happened kind of a lot. So there's that. But she always saves herself, which I loved. So she and Bridget kind of escape from the situation, and she realizes that while they were like sort of recovering from what happened, all of the boys left her, and they said they weren't going to leave her. So she was like, oh, no, sir. She developed a plan of her own, and I don't want to give too much away because it's amazing at this point, but I had the best time with this book. I loved it so much. At the very end, Uncle Morgan chews out all the boys in the most amazing way. It was so much fun. I loved it. And then I kind of got into like, I wanted to read like Highland romance for whatever reason, because this was just, I mean, I don't know why I thought I could try and recreate everything that happened in this. Julie Garwood was just outstanding in this one. Okay, next thing I read was A Scot in the Dark by Sarah MacLean. This was my dud. I really did not like this book. I didn't at all, actually. So I was really surprised by this. I actually have a video where I talk about this a lot more in depth as far as why I didn't care for it, but basically it is the story of, it's a historical romance. It is the second book in the Scandal and Scoundrel series. So it's the second book, and basically it follows Lillian Hargrove, who is the ward of the Duke of Warwick. And this is kind of a very unlucky dukedom, as it's gone through 18 of them, and now we're to Alec. And Alec is the Scottish best friend of King from the first book, The Rogue Not Taken, which I loved. So I was really expecting to love this one, and I did not. So as we meet these two, we basically see Lily, and she has posed nude for an artist who she was actually very in love with. His name is Derek, and his piece of art got chosen by the Royal Exhibition to be exhibited around at least England, if not the world. And she realizes at that point that the picture was not only, or the painting was not only for her eyes, and he's sharing it with the world. She realizes that he did not love her and just used her. So there's that whole situation. Obviously, she's still kind of a thing for him. at this point she meets Alec, and it kind of went south from here for me. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I did a way longer video, but basically they proceed to spend the rest of the book being like, I love you, I want to be with you, but no, I'm not worthy for you. And I just found it really long and really frustrating to read that over and over again is what it felt like. So this was definitely like 2 stars for me. I did not enjoy this one at all. All right, moving on. So after that, I read a book called Dregs by Jorn Horst, I think. I'm going to put it up because I don't speak Norwegian. So yeah, but this is number 6 in the William Wisting series. This is a police procedural set in Norway. It opens with a foot or a decomposed foot in a shoe being found on a beach. And that's kind of where the story opens up. We then proceed to find several other feet. And obviously it's a police procedural, so throughout they start to investigate people, they find out who, they get IDs on who the foot is, and then start to piece together a case. While this is happening, we see William's daughter, Lena, who's a journalist, and she comes back home because she is interviewing a gentleman named Ken Ronnie Hauga. And he was a person who shot a cop and was just recently released from prison after completing his sentence. So her story that she's working on is, does long-term incarceration actually rehabilitate someone? So they do talk about those themes throughout the book as she talks to him and does interviews with him that we see on her side. So to some extent, we kind of get that perspective as well. All the while, there's a police investigation going on, and now we have 5 different people, 3 men, a caretaker from a nursing home, and a cleaning lady. And they can't really figure out why any of these things are together. As the book progresses, we end up finding that there is a plot to steal money, but it was money that was like old bills that were no longer being used from like before the war. So they stole all this money and they were basically like laundering it, so to speak. So they're trying to find out why, like how these things all connect. I had a really good time with this one. I thought the pacing was very medium paced. It was neither slow nor particularly fast. All of the conversations and all of the themes they talked about were really interesting. I do have another longer video where I really kind of go into this one and break it down a little bit, but if you like Scandinavian thrillers, I would definitely recommend this one. This was a solid 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I am not someone that has too many issues with like gore. I don't have any problems with those things or like anything particularly graphic. So I'm not someone that's very good to say if you're gonna have any issues with this. I don't think there was anything in this one. I didn't have any problems. I thought it was a pretty decent police procedural. The ending I thought was great. It was kind of really interesting. Obviously it does tie everything together. I thought it ended really nicely and neatly. It was a really good one, I thought. Anyway, moving on. After that, throughout the month I was reading, so I'm doing this taste test video on Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I don't want to say too much about this, but I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it so much. I was a little bit apprehensive at first, but honestly, it just hooked me from the beginning. It follows Monique, who is a writer at a publication called Vivant, and she is basically handpicked by Evelyn to interview her for this story. She's selling all her dresses at auction, and she's this like old Hollywood glamour icon. So think maybe, I don't know, Carole Lombard, Ginger Rogers, so to speak. No, probably more like Marilyn Monroe, if anything. She's kind of known as this bombshell. And so she asks Monique to interview her and write down the story of her life. So that's kind of what they do, or that's what they do. Evelyn tells her story in flashbacks, and she tells it through the succession of her husbands. She married 7 times. And as we go through each of the husbands, we find out more about her relationship. And honestly, this was a book that I thought was going to be super overhyped. I didn't expect to like it because I hated Maybe in Another Life. but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The only thing I will say is there were times where, as the story was progressing, whenever it cut to Monique, it really took me out of the story, but it was seldom enough, I think, that it didn't ruin it for me. And the end tied it all together so nicely that it was fine, I thought. Yeah. Anyway, finally, and I have another video where I'm comparing that to Daisy Jones and the Six, so you'll see that a little bit later this month. I'm trying my first like vlog style video, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah. Okay, finally, the last book I read this month, or the last book I finished this month, was 450 from Paddington, which was the book I selected for my Uncorked Librarian Challenge, and it was read a book, set on a train? With a train? Something like that. But basically, this story is, it was actually originally published as What Mrs. McGillicuddy Saw, and this is a Miss Marple. I don't know what number Miss Marple it is. I've actually never read any Agatha Christie, so I picked this one specifically because I hadn't read any Agatha Christie, and I do like mysteries and thrillers so much. Specifically mysteries. So I don't know, I had never thought of reading any, I don't know why, I just hadn't ever read hers. Yeah. And I liked it. I thought it was a little bit weird how Miss Marple just sort of knew where to go with this. But pretty much it's Mrs. McGillicuddy is on the train and she witnesses a murder on a train that's going the same direction as her, and she sees the back of someone. No one believes her except Miss Marple. And so we continue and then kind of the story breaks open. Miss Marple calls one of her friends and asks her if she can take a job with a certain family. And this is the part that I don't know. How Miss Marple was able to just kind of like discern where they were. Maybe I just missed it, but that part still leaves a little bit to be desired. Outside of that, the way the story unfolded and the way the mystery unfolded, I thought it was really cool. I mean, it was good. It was good. It was entertaining. I think this was a solid 3 stars. It made me want to check out some more. I also think I maybe started, like this was maybe one of the later books in the series. I think I would like to go back and read some of her more popular, or some of her more, not popular, not acclaimed. I don't know, some of the books that people say are a little bit better than the others. So I want to try some of the more recommended ones, I guess, and see how I feel after that. But all in all, I thought it was actually a pretty decent reading month. It was good across the board. Yeah, stay tuned. I'm starting to do full videos of just individual book reviews, mostly because it's still something that I go to BookTube for. Like as soon as I finish a book, I go look up almost every single book just to see what people have to say. So maybe I'll catch someone else doing the same thing. All right, thanks for being here, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.